Welcome in to the ALL NFL Sunday Huddle on this completely uneventful, completely happy, awesome Sunday of football around the league. What's going on, everyone? My name's Adam Hoge from CHGO. Love our panel tonight. We got RK from DNVR and Fran Duffy representing PHLY as we recap the day. And it was, like I said, uneventful. Nothing happened today, guys. Not at all. What's going on? What's going on, RK?
Not much, man. It's funny because before we came live on the show, you said, "Hey, I didn't make it to the end of the Buffs game. Did they end up winning?" And I said yes. And so it's crazy. Same thing actually happened with me. I didn't catch the end of the Bears game. They ended up getting that dub?
Well, yeah, they they had a 96.4% chance of winning, and they had all 11 players completely paying attention on the field, and they had the perfect Hail Mary defense on, and they knocked the ball down, and the Bears are 5-2, and everybody in Chicago is happy, and other than everything I just said happening, that's exactly how it played out. Fran, come on, man. Help me out with what in the world was going on at the end of that football game.
I mean, look, you have Tyreek Stevenson out there celebrating and jawing with fans as the play is starting. Like, the ball is snapped, Jayden Daniels is retreating in the pocket, and Tyreek Stevenson is looking into the stands, through the back of the end zone. You can't make it up. And then the defense was like horrific. The only guy that seemed like he was doing his job in the back seven was Jalen Johnson, boxing out down near the goal line. Noah Brown by himself in the end zone, perfectly executed by everybody on Washington's side. Jayden Daniels buying time, letting things set up downfield, delivering a great throw on the move, going to his left, and you get the tip ball. Noah Brown again by himself, just, I mean, inexcusable, certainly from the Chicago back seven.
Yeah, I don't even know. First of all, I think that there needs to be like a rule mandated that you're not allowed to rush three on a Hail Mary ever.
Unreal.
There's so many examples. In fact, I mean, there's no way for me to prove this off the top of my head, but I bet you if you right now like compiled all the successful Hail Marys in the last 20 years, 90% of them there'd be rush three by the defense. I hate it. I don't understand it. That's how Aaron Rodgers had all those Hail Marys back in the day. It blows my mind that anybody does that. And then on top of it, look, we got through 30 minutes, RK, of our CHGO Bears postgame show before I even knew that that viral video was starting to go around of Tyreek Stevenson not even paying attention for the first 5 to 7 seconds of the play because he was too busy in the corner of the end zone, jawing with the fans and waving to them. Just amazing that could ever happen in an NFL game with a professional player. And then it turns out, based on people I've texted with and looked at some Hail Mary diagrams that are out there too of how this is normally drawn up, and adding that into what Matt Eberflus said after the game, I'm about 99.9% sure that his job on that play was to guard the back line and be what they call the savior to knock it down. So when you put that into context too, all I can tell you guys, somebody who's been covering this team as long as I have, who's done so many post-game shows after double doinks and all types of losses that you don't even think are possible, this one might top them all, quite frankly, because it was one thing to give up a Hail Mary. It was another to find out 30 minutes later that one of the 11 players, and probably the guy responsible for not letting happen what happened, was not even paying attention at the beginning of the play. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I mean, have you seen the screenshot? I'm sure you've seen everything at this point, but the
Yeah.
screenshots of the Bears fans who are pointing to like it was Bears fans who were like, "Hey, hey, the play is happening," and that's when he finally turned around. Um, honest question. I'm sure there's plenty of Bears fans who want heads to roll, and like I think that offense from Tyreek Stevenson is like bad enough um, that you could get cut for it. Are the Bears in a position to be able to cut Tyreek Stevenson?
So I made this my raw reaction. This is what's awesome about what we do, right? With our post game shows across ALLCITY. And so I literally we wrapped up a segment with Lance Briggs and Corey Wooten, two former Bears players who we already broke down like everything went wrong defensively. These are guys that played in the NFL, knows how the play is supposed to work. Again, this was right before Greg Braggs came back on the set and then showed us the video of Tyreek Stevenson and kind of did it live for our raw reaction. And right there I go, he cannot play next week. He needs to be a healthy scratch. He's too talented to cut outright RK. He's a second-round pick. In fact, Tyreek Stevenson made 3 touchdown-saving plays in this game. Like, that's the part that sucks, too. Like, he's a huge reason why the Commanders were settling for so many field goals and not scoring touchdowns. If this last play hadn't happened or he had been paid attention and been the guy who knocked it down, I mean, he would have been a hero in the city this week. And instead, he's the GOAT now, the wrong kind of GOAT. And but I don't know how you can, like, if you're going to have any type of accountability in your building, to me, he's got to be a healthy scratch next week just to show that like something that egregious at this level just cannot stand.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at it is that they'll probably approach this from like a good cop, bad cop type of situation. So whether it's Eberflus that's coming at this hard tomorrow or Tuesday, whenever they have their next full team meeting, and you show that play and you show all the angles and you talk through everything. Obviously, look, all the players, I mean, they know the deal coming into the building the next time they're in, right? So whoever it is that's kind of carrying that heavy stick, then you need somebody else, whether that's the coordinator, the DB coach, vets in the room, whoever that is. They now have to like kind of take Tyreek Stevenson by the side, say, all right, like, hey, like young guy, like we have to learn from this because we're going to need you down the stretch if we're going to be the kind of team that we want to be, right? If we're going to reach our goals here moving forward. And the Chicago Bears obviously still have high hopes moving forward. You still want to challenge potentially for the North, but namely for one of those wild card spots, and they're going to need Tyreek Stevenson in order to get there. And so I'll be interested to see if there is any kind of punishment. But my guess is, especially the kind of knowing, how my understanding of Eberflus and just that organization. And Adam, you could speak to this in terms of just how they want to be able to connect with those guys. I think that they would probably kind of handle it that way. It's not going to be full court press on Stevenson and make an example. My guess is you got to kind of try to make it a learning experience for a talented young player.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing is there's nothing this egregious that's happened, but like they had an issue with Chase Claypool last year where he was just like flat out not playing with effort, and they dragged their feet on holding him accountable, and then eventually just got to the point where by the time they did it, there was too much drama and stuff going around, and so I don't know. I mean, they have a good backup in Terrell Smith, who's healthy now. So you could even just, from a coaching standpoint, you never want to expose your defense by, leaving a guy out there. But they do kind of have the depth to handle this. It'll be interesting because but here's the other part of this too. If we're going to talk about, how the coaching staff handles stuff, I just tweeted this out right before we started, guys. These are win probabilities the Bears have had in the fourth quarter of the last 2 seasons. And I know one of these games, RK, well. Because against the Broncos last year, the Bears had a 98.1% chance of winning that football game. In Detroit last year against a good Lions team, they had a 98.2% chance of winning the game in the fourth quarter. Against Cleveland last year on the road, 91% chance. And then tonight, right before that Hail Mary, it was 96.4. The Bears somehow lost all 4 of those games. And that's in a results-based business. I've probably been more on the side of like defending Matt Eberflus for the most part. I thought it counted for something that all the drama they had earlier last year, including that game they blew to the Broncos arcade, that he managed to hold the locker room together. They got their quarterback. They were 4-2 coming into this game. They should be 5-2 now if they could just defend a Hail Mary. But when you start to look at, I think his road record's now 3-17 or something over 3 years, and 4 losses like that where you have a high 90% chance of winning that you blow in the fourth quarter. That's starting to add up to a point where it's just hard to defend the guy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the old, losing is a habit, winning is a habit thing, right? It's when you've done it so much, things like this somehow just happen. And I think, anyone who's followed their team when they're in a down spot still see it happen. And even when you're starting to climb out, you still have some of those demons that you have to find a way to get over. And maybe it's not this season. I'm sure it will come soon for the Bears, but that's tough. And I do want to say, I wasn't calling for Tyreek Stevenson's head. I just figured that's probably part of the conversation. I actually think he deserves a little bit of credit for already kind of taking it head on, apologizing, and putting himself out there tonight.
Real quick on that, he did tweet out the apology to Chicago and teammates. My apologies for lack of awareness and focus. The game isn't over until zeros hit the clock. Can't take anything for granted. Notes taken. Improvement will happen. So credit for him. What I'm just gonna say is, would have carried a little bit more weight with me if he had spoken in the media after the game, but he didn't. Sure. And it's always easy to fire off a tweet later when you're not in front of cameras. I'll just say that part, but he did tweet it. We'll see how it's handled. I know the ex-Bears players we have on our shows all felt like that's a situation where he needs to apologize in person to his teammates and in a team meeting. Maybe that happens tomorrow. We'll find out. I don't want to lose sight of the Commanders side of this. They do get the win. Quite frankly, Jayden Daniels clearly outplayed Caleb Williams today, and that was the big storyline coming to this game. We weren't even – most of the week, I think we thought Jayden wasn't even going to play. He was clearly battling. There were moments the Bears actually did a pretty good job of getting hits on him in this game, and he kept getting up, kept throwing the ball. Now, Caleb did lead 2 really impressive fourth-quarter drives that count for something after – I think he was sitting at 33 passing yards somehow early in the fourth. Did lead the Bears down to the 1, where in very Bears fashion, they decided to hand the ball off to a backup offensive lineman instead of a running back, and they turned the ball over, and then Caleb said, okay, I'll do it again, and they actually took the lead. So I do think there's something to be said for Caleb Williams coming through in the fourth quarter today, because the last quarterback, Justin Fields, that's what he never could really do, and a big reason why they moved on. But if you're going to zoom out and look at the whole game, Fran, I mean, Jayden Daniels, I think if the gap was starting to close a little bit for the Rookie of the Year award, which it kind of was in recent weeks with how well Caleb Williams was playing, he stretched it back out today because Jayden Daniels, even though they didn't get in the end zone until the end of the game on that Hail Mary, was clearly the better quarterback for the entirety of this game.
Yeah, I mean, to steal a line from college football, like that's his Heisman moment this year, right? If he's going to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, this is the moment that you're going to point to. He's going head-to-head with the number 1 pick, and he makes arguably the play of the year, certainly so far in the NFL. And I think when you look at Daniels, his ability to kind of gut this out, no one really had any kind of faith that he was going to play outside of Washington, like, internally in that building, that he was going to play in this game. Everybody kind of felt like, all right, they're going to put him on ice and, kind of play for the next week. And this will be Marcus Mariota. So he's a surprise active player. He starts the game, comes through, guts this one out. I do want to ask you, Adam, just, looking at Caleb Williams, and I know, I haven't watched every single drop back this year, but I know early on in the season when things were a little bit more volatile with that pass game and the numbers weren't always there, and you were kind of just looking at the flashes there with Caleb Williams, one big theme and one big talking point was that so much of it was vertical, a lot of downfield throws. And then as things started to heat up and become a little bit more consistent, it was less downfield throws, and he was kind of playing more within the rhythm of the offense and, letting things come to him underneath, and some of the short stuff was there. Then you go back to this week, and he had 5 downfield attempts of over 20 yards. He was 1 for 5 for 27 yards in this one. What are your thoughts just in terms of what was going on schematically in this football game that led to such a spike in some of those downfield throws?
Yeah, I mean, for one, I thought that the Bears were he started off a little too amped up, I thought. It's a homecoming game for him, going back to DC, and this is a team that's gotten off to horrible starts pretty much every single week. They have yet to score a touchdown on the first drive. They've managed one field goal all season on the first drive of the game. So, but this was especially bad because he took a sack right away. There was, I think, a false start in there. Everything looked disjointed. This was one of those games where, and I even said this on the post game, like, I can't wait to look at the all 22 because it was really hard for me to believe. I thought one of the biggest advantages the Bears had this week was their wide receivers against this basically no-name Washington secondary. I thought they should have been able to get open, and it's one of those things where on the TV copy you can't really tell. It was nobody getting open, or was Caleb just not seeing who was open? And I won't know the answer to that until I'm able to look at the all 22, but it just seemed like guys weren't getting open, or he was holding on to the ball too long. It was just clearly a step back from the last couple weeks. And we wondered this, right? Because, great games against the Rams and Panthers and Jaguars, but, those are three pretty bad defenses. I thought, though, that they could carry that with the matchup they had today, and it really didn't happen until the fourth quarter. And then I kind of, Caleb Williams has always had these moments going back to college, even high school, where when he needs to put the team on his back to make plays, it all of a sudden starts to come together. Maybe that's the hero ball coming out. I'm not really sure, but it did seem to start to click in the fourth quarter for whatever reason.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that to me, that was the big thing that I was interested to hear from Adam, was just the difference in terms of the overall plan of attack there for that pass game.
And I think from a standpoint of, like, each team looking at their rookie quarterback, obviously, Bears fans are leaving this one super, super disappointed. But if you strip it down to just a quarterback standpoint, you love seeing that Caleb was able to figure it out and kind of find a way to get that team a lead late in the game, and one play goes differently, and everyone, that's the whole story, is Caleb makes the comeback. He didn't have his fastball, but found a way anyway. If you're a Commanders fan, I mean, you've been sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, we found our savior, and that happens, and you're just like, feel so validated, right? You're just like, okay, like, there's some sort of like divine intervention here that we're finally going to get back in the mix.
Yeah, and let's not sugarcoat this thing. I mean, like, this wasn't necessarily a pretty football game for a lot of the game. I mean, the Bears were struggling offensively. The Commanders were failing to finish drives. They had 4 field goals up until the Hail Mary. I mean, credit to the Bears defense. It's kind of been their MO all season. They'll give up yards and then shut it down in the red zone, and that was certainly working. And then the Commanders kicker missed, I believe it was his first miss of the entire year, and just like completely chunked his 6-iron, the way that we would, in the middle of the fairway, and completely missed a field goal that went. So this was a game that probably the Bears shouldn't even been in when they took the lead, but and then if you're the Commanders, you're probably sitting there going, man, well, we deserve this. We couldn't finish all those drives. We just kicked all those field goals, and now we're losing. But then they get, the prayer answered on the Hail Mary. So it's weird. We'll just one more question on this, and then we can turn the page, because I want to hear more about the Eagles and Broncos too, and their wins today. But Fran, I'm curious from your standpoint. I thought this was going to be kind of a litmus test game for both of these teams, where, we come out of it knowing a little, maybe which one of these teams is maybe a legit contender and maybe one of them's not. I don't know what to make of this, even once this game's over, because of the way it just went. I mean, I'm not sure either offense looked all that great. And it ends on a weird Hail Mary. I mean, where you stand, I guess, when it comes to both of these teams, the Commanders and Bears?
Yeah, I mean, final 12 seconds aside, it feels like the defense did a pretty good job in Chicago of limiting what had been one of the most explosive offensive attacks, running the ball and throwing the football so far this season with the Washington Commanders. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury's, to this point, had done such an outstanding job of being able to consistently find ways, creative ways, to move the football in both phases. And so to me, like when we got done our post game show after the Eagles win, I'm looking at the board and I'm like, all right, like this is a low scoring game. Chicago's defense came to play. I was wondering if Jayden Daniels was still in the game at that point. So for me, I'm looking at this. I'm just like you. I'm excited to go and watch the film of this one and just see what was Chicago able to do to really limit Washington's offense throughout this one. Because I'll tell you, I'm sure there are at least 150 people in the building in South Philly, the NovaCare complex, that would have liked to see that ball hit the ground as opposed to be caught by Noah Brown in the back of the end zone, just to give the Eagles a little bit more breathing room there in the East. Now still chasing them by a game, but I think overall, when you're looking at Washington, it's still going to be a tough test, man. I'm excited. The Eagles play Washington here in a few weeks. That's going to be a very fun game to break down, especially if the Eagles can keep things going. But we'll get to them in a little bit.
And it's a good opportunity for me to bring up the Eagles fans that happen to be at Almost Home, the bar in Wrigleyville where we did our pre and post game today. And there just happened to be 4 Eagles fans there, and one of them came up to me after we got done with the post game. And I just laughed kind of because, he's an Eagles fan, but he was like, hey man, just want to give you a lot of credit for getting through that. Like, he's like, I don't even know how you guys would do a post game show like that. Like, I just think it's really funny, like what you guys have to deal with. He's like, I mean, you handed the ball off to an offensive lineman at the 1 yard line. Like, it just blows my mind. And I'm like, it's just,
you're making it way better.
Yeah. Thanks, man. But and Archaeo, like this, the place we're at, there's a whole pod of Broncos fans that come there every single week, and a couple of them are DNVR diehards too.
Oh, look at that.
That's awesome. Yeah. They were probably there when I threw the we signed Russell Wilson party in Chicago. That was on my birthday. Yeah, and nothing bad happened after that.
No, just like the end of the Bears game today. Nothing bad happened. It was all good. Only reason to celebrate. Let's transition from the Commanders to the Eagles in the NFC East, friend. And big win today for the Eagles against the Bengals. I know it kind of started slow, but at the end of the day, they finished strong, 37-17. Big second half to close this one out against Cincinnati. Kind of recap this and tell us what it means for the Eagles, who are now 5-2.
Yeah, as you mentioned, they go 5-2. First win ever in the city of Cincinnati. So we all got to witness history today as they were able to come away with a big win. Look, Jalen Hurts, first quarterback in NFL history with 3 games with at least 3 rushing touchdowns. 2 of them via the brotherly shove, the tush push, but one of them on a basic zone read. But also did it while completing 80% of his passes, 236 yards. His longest touchdown pass of his career, a 45-yard pass to Devontae Smith that traveled 59 yards in the air. And I think when you look at this offense, it's been really kind of predicated on the explosive play, both on the ground and through the air. Saquon Barkley, it was a very workmanlike day for him. He didn't have a run of double digits until really the final drive that kind of sealed it. And he had a 16-yarder and a 19-yarder, but it just felt like they were just constantly pounding away at the Cincinnati offense or the Cincinnati defense, where it was 5 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards. And then you just had that efficient play from Jalen Hurts 3 weeks in a row now where he has not turned the football over. So really efficient play from him in this one. And I thought that he really rebounded well. I honestly thought that last week, the win over the New York Giants was Jalen Hurts' worst game, certainly of this season, but really that I've seen from him in the last couple of years. Just not seeing the field all that clearly. It was a small sample size of throws, but I thought he bounced back nice. I'm excited to go through the film and see what he looked like in a lot of those pure drop back situations. But to not have like the explosive runs in this game and still find ways to be able to move the football. I mean, they scored touchdowns on 5 of 6 drives, had a field goal wedged in between there. So the offense certainly held up their end of the bargain. But the big difference, guys, this one, defensively, they were finally able to get turnovers. I mean, they just had not been forcing takeaways on that side of the football, and they finally were able to do that. First game this year where they were able to get multiple takeaways. C.J. Gardner-Johnson getting an interception after an Isaiah Rodgers tip ball downfield against Jamar Chase. And then you also had a punch out from Zach Bond, the linebacker, that Nakobe Dean was able to jump on. The Eagles were able to convert both of those turnovers into points, and that's how you get away with a runaway victory here in Cincinnati. So this was a big litmus test game. I mean, this defense defense has really played well over the last couple of weeks. I mentioned the volatility we've seen offensively, but I think overall, you got to feel good if you're an Eagles fan coming out of this one. 3 games in a row now that this Eagles team has won, 2 in decisive fashion. It's a good way. I mean, look, you got Jacksonville coming to town next week. It's a team with a losing record. Dallas, another team with a losing record the week after. A division rival, certainly, but a team that if you're able to win these 2 games, now you've won 5 straight. And you're going in the middle of the season 7-2. That'll make you feel good. And so I'm interested to see how this team continues to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think these last couple weeks, seeing this offense kind of at full capacity with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown back in the mix, and obviously Saquon Barkley mixed in with them. One thing I love about Eagles fans, and I don't even know if you know this, Fran, but I'm engaged to one of them.
Oh, nice.
Every game, almost every drive, every play is like shifts a narrative one way or the other, and they had a struggle there when they didn't have those 2 guys, and it was like, oh, is Jalen washed and this, that, and the other, and finally you get all of the ingredients of this offense that they built back together, and these last couple of weeks, it's looked like a well-oiled machine.
It's honestly it's kind of exhausting because I tried to put out last week again, like Jalen did not have a good game last week. He didn't play well, and when you say that, the Eagles fans, it's one side or the other when it comes to Jalen Hurts. And Adam, I know that you can empathize with this because I'm sure it was this way with Justin Fields. I'm sure it's this way right now with Caleb Williams. I feel like when you have a passionate fan base, like I really think of Eagles fans and Bears fans as similar in this way. And I know TJ Edwards just spoke about this recently, actually. It just in terms of like the passion and really, I mean, it comes forward so often with that quarterback discussion, where it's like, look, he's not playing well right now. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm not saying he can't make bad reads. In this game, he did not make the easy throws. He did not make the simple reads. And he came back in this game, and people saying, "Oh, how about those simple reads this week, Fran?" I'm like, "Yeah, last week didn't play well. This week played well." It's really kind of an easy thing to grasp, but as you said, it's every throw you kind of have to like live and die with that being all right. Like this is what Jalen Hurts is now, and obviously we know that in reality that is not how it works. But no, like I said, I mean, they're hoping that they can kind of generate some momentum here. This is a big win, an important win for this team going on the road because you get wins over the Giants. Daniel Jones. That offense was kind of middling for most of the year, but they're missing their starting left tackle. Even though you had all this defensive success, how real was it? The week before it was against Cleveland, Deshaun Watson. That pass game had been dreadful. So how real was that defensive performance? To go and do what you did against Cincinnati, you held Joe Burrow to his lowest quarterback rating of the season in this game. So I think just continuing to try and build those strong performances defensively, you pop the seal in terms of the takeaways. Again, just trying to build that forward momentum here for this group on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting how this is shaping up now with the Commanders managing to steal the win on the Hail Mary, and the Eagles at 5-2. Cowboys lose again, so this seems like it's kind of a 2-horse race in the NFC East. I got to give the nod to Philly. I mean, I just, especially seeing the Commanders today. The Commanders have definitely surprised me, and I don't think they're going anywhere. But one of the reasons why I think this loss might haunt the Bears later is because it might end up, possibly deciding a wild card situation too. But Fran, I would probably have to give this nod right now, calling it in late October, to the Eagles. Still, I just think top to bottom, the roster is more talented. Is that how you're looking at it right now?
Yeah, I think that to me, it's the line of scrimmage. If the Eagles can continue to assert themselves on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, I do think that that's going to be something that will carry them through, especially against Washington, because that's where they're kind of struggling right now. I mean, they lost Jonathan Allen last week, so they didn't have him obviously for this game. It looked like Jer'Zhan Newton was all over the place. Johnny Newton was all over. What do you have? 8 pressures of Caleb Williams in this game. But I think when you look overall, at the trench depth on both sides, you got to give the edge to the Eagles, and I think that's by design. That's the way that Howie Roseman and the Eagles consistently want to build this thing. And so I would agree. I think when you look at the way they build the line of scrimmage, and then you look at the blue chip talent on offense, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, you get Dallas Goedert back healthy, you put them all with Jalen Hurts, and you have to feel good about their chances here in the East, especially if Dallas continues to go down the opposite way.
All right, well let's talk a little bit about the Broncos too, because they held serve in what I've been telling people every single week, which is always bet against the Panthers, no matter what the spread is. They're just not a good football team, and the Broncos had this one pretty much a little close early, but seemed like for most of the game, the group of Broncos fans I was telling you about earlier, they were in like kind of a side room, and
Mm-hmm.
there would be these random cheers going on in the middle of the Bears game, and you're like, what just happened? Oh, it's the Broncos fans in the other room, and there seemed to be a lot of them. So things were going well. 28-14 win as Bo Nix threw the ball 37 times, which kind of surprised me when I saw that, RK, considering it felt like you guys were in control of this football game. 28-37, 284, and 3 touchdowns for a passer rating of 124.2. So believe in Bo, I guess. I mean, he is did he look as good as what those numbers indicate?
He really did, in my opinion. This was an exciting one. Now, I understand it's the Panthers, but man, I don't know if there's anything you could prescribe better for a rookie quarterback than being able to go up against the Panthers.
Yeah.
And that's why I actually wasn't surprised with how often they threw it today. Not to flex too much here, but I did have a same game parlay of Bo Nix over 275 passing yards, Bo Nix 3 passing touchdowns, and Broncos -6, which was plus 3,000. So
Wow. Nice.
I had a feeling that Sean Payton was going to look at this and say, I've got an opportunity here to pad some stats for my young quarterback to get him, a little bit of a confidence boost, and like, let's just let him go out there and sling it. But this was, him doing things we just haven't seen him do yet. And so I think it's going to be nice and comforting for him to know, okay, I can push the ball down the field. I can work, the deep middle of the field. I can trust some of these receivers to go make plays for me. He just went out there and played very comfortably today. And that was the most exciting part. And, Adam, the last time I was on this show, I was still very worried about how things were going for Bo Nix, but it's a real lesson, I think, in patience with these young quarterbacks. He has gotten consistently better over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and out of nowhere, this team is 5-3. Their defense is really good. They're beating teams they should, and he's slowly but surely getting better. It's kind of on the arc that you really hope to see when you're kind of starting from scratch with a young quarterback like they are.
Fran, what was your reaction to Bo Nix and kind of not only today, but just where he's in his rookie season?
Yeah, I mean, I went back and just watched every drop back from this game here tonight before we went on, and I thought that he looked as settled as we've seen from him. There were so many times this year just going back and watching that offense where you just saw everything moving really fast, and we'll talk about that with some other guys here tonight. But I think when you look at Bo Nix in this game, it might have been, hey, Sean Payton might have told him that this is a game where there's going to be opportunities there for you. You just got to trust it, trust the offense, trust the line. They're going to keep you safe. But look, even against the blitz, I mean, when Carolina sent extra rushers, he threw for nearly 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. So I thought Bo Nix certainly looked as comfortable, as calm, as settled in the pocket as we've seen from him this year. There wasn't as much of like the dropping in the eyes and kind of running around like the chicken with his head cut off as we had seen over the spurts of this season. And so, yeah, a really good sign, a really positive sign for his future development.
And just to add to that, I think one of the signs you can see of a quarterback starting for the game starting to slow down for him a little bit, starting to read the field, more comfortably is when they start spreading the ball around. Oftentimes you get a rookie quarterback in there and he's just looking for wide receiver one and, forcing it. And, if it's not his first read's not there, he runs. Bo Nix completed passes to 11 different players today. And he throws a touchdown to Nate Atkins, a touchdown to Adam Troutman, guys who hadn't even showed up in box scores yet this season. So, 4 catches for little Jordan Humphrey, 4 catches for Javonte Williams. Like, it was just it felt like he had the offense going, like you said, was settled down back there and was able to just go through his reads and deliver the football. And yes, I'll say it again, the Panthers make that easier than most teams. But being able to simulate that and do it in real time, I think is exciting. And now the Broncos get two massive tests. You want to talk about litmus tests. This might be more than a litmus test because now they go back to back at Baltimore, at Kansas City. But even playing those teams close and just seeing, Bo be able to make plays in those games, I think would be really big for this team.
Yeah, RK, I was going to ask you about that kind of more big picture here because the schedule does get tougher. Going to Baltimore, going to Kansas City, and then a home game against the Falcons after that too, before kind of softening a little bit. What is your level of confidence that, man, 2-1 seems like a stretch there, but at least that they're not going to go 0-3 and kind of fall back down to, I don't want to say down to earth because I don't want to insult what the Broncos have done so far, but I think we're all a little bit surprised here that they're 5-1 in their last 6.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that is exciting is you've seen Sean Payton kind of put together some of his like classic game plans where he goes out there and exploits mismatches and makes things really easy. Bo's getting better. But I think the big thing is this defense is the real deal. And so I think they're going to give you a chance in every game, every time you go out there on the field. And so I think, there's a decent chance they get one of these just because the defense balls out. And for them to get, more than that to me would be like, okay, the defense balled out and Sean Payton nailed, whatever game plan he put together, which we know he's capable of doing. So it's certainly possible. They did what they needed to do though, which was take care of these bad teams, especially the last 2 weeks against the Saints and Panthers. It's like, okay, now you built yourself a little bit of padding where you could, drop to the Ravens and Chiefs, which no one's going to blame you for, and not knock yourself out of the race. One other thing that I wanted to talk about, because I'm not sure if you guys saw it from the game today, is the Panthers took a lot of exception with Sean Payton throwing the ball, having Bo Nix throw the ball.
I saw this. Yeah, it wasn't like J.C. Horn yelling at Sean Payton after the game.
Yeah, and Bo Nix completed a pass to Cortland Sutton like down in the red zone, and he almost scored, and they stripped it out. And like as soon as they got the ball, they're running and like yelling and pointing at Sean Payton, and then J.C. Horn was yelling at him after the game. Sean kind of played dumb in his post-game press conference. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know what he was so mad about," but they clearly took issue with that. I personally loved it. Like I said, this is a confidence builder game for Bo. The Broncos also weren't running the ball very well. I kind of like seeing them do that. It actually ended up costing them because they were up 28-7 before that fumble. And, it left some time on the clock there for the Panthers to go score. But I didn't mind it whatsoever.
I mean, that's not like Tyreek Stevenson level of like bush leaguedness from J.C. Horn there, but like, dude, you've got other stuff to worry about. It's a 3-score game. If they're going to throw the ball, like make them pay for it. Don't worry about chirping at the other sideline about it. It's a weird reaction.
And also, my reaction usually in those situations is stop them.
Yeah. No
okay,
question.
You did. You got the fumble recovery. Good for you. Now look at the scoreboard. Settled out.
Yeah.
Like it's just I find that funny. There's very few cases where teams are actually trying to run up the score, and I don't think an AFC NFC matchup here between what do you got?
You got Sean Payton going against a former NFC South rival there.
Okay.
And if I wouldn't put it past Sean Payton at all to want to run the score up on someone, but good.
Yeah.
This is the NFL.
Yeah, again, stop them. And if you did, then good. But
he is a coach that was on the other side of a 70-point loss last year. So, I mean, he's been on the other side of that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Let's do a quick.
By the way.
Sorry, RK.
No, it's crazy because there's a lot of players on that defense that are on this defense.
Yeah, sure.
And also, that was against the Dolphins, right?
Yep.
And the Dolphins can't score anymore. So, what a weird league.
Yeah.
it's like completely flipped. Real quick, Fran. I want to. You're our NFL draft guy, so let's just do a quick check-in on these rookie quarterbacks from this class, and obviously the other story today involved Drake May, who got hurt and wasn't able to finish the Patriots game. And then they ended up coming back and winning and beating the Jets, who we're going to talk about here in a minute too. But where are you at on these, especially these first round quarterbacks that, were in this year's draft class?
Yeah, obviously, we haven't seen JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix, but I think when you look at the guys that we have seen, it's positivity, certainly with all of them right now. I mean, look, development is not going to be the same. I try and stress this with Eagles fans and with NFL fans that have listened to my podcasts in the past in terms of you can't compare. And it's easy to do it, but you can't compare Caleb Williams to Jayden Daniels and say, oh, like Jayden Daniels is so much better 5 weeks in, so he's going to be the better player. If both guys could be great, and maybe that arc of improvement and development is going to look a little bit different. But to me, I think it's been all signs of positivity. Obviously, it's been more positivity with Caleb and with Jayden and even with Drake in the limited sample than with Bo. But I think that we've seen plenty from Bo, in my opinion. I would say that I'm probably a little bit more positive looking at Bo Nix than most. But I think when you look at all those guys, it's a lot of reasons to be excited about what they could be moving forward. I did think that the Bo Nix pick was fine in terms of like a value standpoint. I thought that he had starting potential coming out of Oregon. And if you had told me that 3 years ago after watching him at Auburn, I would have said that you were nuts. But I think that the way that he was able to improve over these last couple of years was eye-popping for me. I was a year ago when I watched him in the last summer before last season. I thought he made a huge jump, and then to even see him get incrementally better going into his super senior season, I thought was really, really important to see. And so, to me, Adam, I think looking at all of these guys, a lot to be excited about. Certainly areas for growth with all of them, though.
Yeah, I think it's exciting that you look at classes like I think the last hyped up group of quarterbacks where we saw so many go in the first round would have been the Justin Fields class, where you had Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance, who didn't work out, and then who am I forgetting in there too, Fran? And Zach Wilson. Yeah, I mean, they basically three of them flamed out. One is a backup, and Trevor's got paid, but it's been a struggle. Although he's been better recently, but it's just, they can't really quite get him probably to the, the elite level that they thought they were getting when they used the number one overall pick there. So, again, to your point, it's way early. This development is going to, it's going to be chunky. That's what I keep saying in Chicago too. I come out of games like today with Caleb where he's got, 30 something passing yards early in the fourth quarter. And you're going, how is that even possible? 4 completions against this Commanders defense, but then he did his job in the fourth and look like Superman again. So I don't come out of this game today in this loss, worried about Caleb Williams at all. I would still put my money, and you could say this is bias, I guess, but I would still put my money on Caleb Williams being better than Jayden Daniels in the long run. But every time I say that, I also go, it's okay to have multiple good quarterbacks from the same class. In fact, that would be awesome. It would be awesome if this is more of like a Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen type of conversation, right? Where there's actual rivalries. There's actually games that repeatedly and matchups that repeatedly get put on primetime television and that you see them in the playoffs. That would be great if this is not maybe the next time we see Caleb Williams play Jayden Daniels is in the playoffs. That would be awesome.
Well, Adam, and it's funny because the game that game got flexed into the 4 p.m. window, right? And that got flexed. The game that got flexed out was the Eagles and Bengals game, and that was the first matchup between two of the top quarterbacks from the 2020 class in Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. And I'm looking back at that class, and that's Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and then also another Pro Bowler in there, Snoop Huntley, sneaking there on the back end from Baltimore now with Miami. But I mean, that was a class where you got 5 starting quarterbacks, 5 pretty good starting quarterbacks, and you would say like 2 or 3 great ones out of that group. And so it would stand to reason that it is possible that that's what this class looks like 3 or 4 years from now. But I mean, Jordan Love was a huge question mark for 3 years as he sat on the bench. Like, That could be Michael Penix. Who knows what the deal will be with JJ McCarthy, how long Sam Darnold sticks around here. And you talk about just how that development is not always linear. In your verbiage, it could be chunky for some of these guys, but it might take time. But 4 years from now, what does it look like? I think that right now there's reason to be positive about all of them.
I think it's super exciting just for the league that, you've got three starting quarterbacks with winning records right now as rookies.
Right.
That's exciting to me. I think the biggest problem that the NFL ever has as a product is there's not enough good quarterbacks. So, the more that we add to the mix, the better these games will get, the more entertaining they'll be on Sundays.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to hit on a bunch of topics before we get out of here. Always a good way to kind of go through this is to share the best and worst thing we saw from the day. And I'm going to have to choose something besides the Hail Mary, obviously, in the Bears-Commanders game is the worst. I will go to my best, though, because, you could make an argument. Settle down a little bit here. I know the Chiefs are 7-0. I'm not taking anything away from Patrick Mahomes, but the way the Lions have looked in recent weeks, would anybody be surprised if they're actually the best team in the league when it's all said and done? I mean, another offensive explosion with Ben Johnson running that thing. They got off to a little bit of a slow start this season offensively, and now, trust me, as soon as that Bears game ended today, the amount of tweets in my timeline from people being like, well, you got to hire Ben Johnson in the offseason. Whoever makes that happen is probably going to be pretty happy, but a 52-14 win over the Titans, that was maybe the biggest spread we've seen all season. So it's not like that was a tough matchup for them. I think it got up to 11 or 12 points when it was all said and done. But to blow them out the way they did, that game was 14-14 at one point. So I just thought the Lions continue to look like one of the best teams in the league. And then I obviously had to pick up. I can go. Sadly, there was another. And I alluded to this earlier, but besides the Hail Mary in the Bears game, they also tried to hand the ball off to backup offensive lineman Doug Kramer, excuse me, in a moment where, guys, you got to earn that. You can't go refrigerator Perry when the game's on the line. You got to have like a lead. You got to have everything clicking offensively. To do that with a game on the line on a game go-ahead touchdown was just wild to me and just a horrible call, horrible decision. So that's my worst of the day.
That is fair. I mean, you have a lot of guys that you pay to have the ball in their hands to score touchdowns, and that is definitely not one of them.
I mean, it wasn't even close. They didn't even you see botched handoffs where they just didn't quite get the ball was never even in the mesh point. It was like a handoff to his shoulder.
And Kramer's an Illini, right? So you get the local flavor. So you're hoping that'll really hit well, for the home crowd, and obviously not the case.
Give it to Cole Kmet if we're trying to play to the home crowd.
Yeah, right.
Or just give it to the running back. Like what? It's just unbelievable. RK, I'll go to you next. Your best and worst.
All right. I will start with my worst, which is, I believe his name is Nathan Shepard of the Saints, trying to twist Justin Herbert's knee.
Yeah.
That was brutal. And it goes back to just what I was talking about. Like, we don't have enough good quarterbacks in this league. We can't be out there trying to injure guys. But shout out to Bradley Bozeman, who took exception to that. And I don't even think was penalized. But do you know if he was penalized for that?
I don't know, but he went full Hannibal Lecter on him. It was awesome. So just an awesome reaction from Bozeman.
Yes. I mean, honestly, I don't know if that referee made him a decision in that moment. Be like, I'm not going to penalize him for that. Because it probably should have been a penalty based on the rule book, but if he let that one go, just be that would be actually cool. I would give the refs credit for that because that was totally uncalled for and good for him defending his quarterback.
Yep,
agree.
And as much as I hate to see it because I don't like the Chargers, you can see a little bit of that Jim Harbaugh hard nose nature, matriculating into that team when you see a guy defend his quarterback like that. And then the best thing I saw today was everything involving Jameis Winston. It started with did you see the video of him inside the huddle when he said, play for the logo on your helmets? Then he's like, wait, we don't have a logo on our helmets.
Fantastic.
And then he also said after the game, he just went through a full lyric by lyric display of Eminem. Sometimes I don't know if he's trying to be funny or not, but like he was just deadpan, reciting Eminem lyrics in his post game interview. And that gets me every time. I think he might be the most unintentionally funny player in NFL history.
Yeah, RK, he was actually my best too. I went through and just wanted to watch all of his dropbacks because look, I don't need people like saying prayers for me, but a couple weeks ago, the Eagles were getting ready to play the Browns. I spent hours watching this Browns offense, and that is like eyeball bleeding worthy stuff. Like that was really just dreadful. And then so the Eagles get past that. I'm like, all right, I can put that to bed. I don't have to do it anymore. I go to get ready for the Eagles to play the New York Giants. And who did they just play? They played the Cleveland Browns. The Cincinnati Bengals, who did they play last week? The Cleveland Browns. So I've watched entirely too much Browns offense over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And so to see, all right, what does this offense look like with Jameis Winston? And you could just like feel the energy and feel the juice with those receivers coming out of breaks. Like just so much more confidence in that pass game. It was a ton of play action from Jameis Winston. He ended up finishing 8 of 13 for 147 yards and a touchdown off play action. Over half of his yardage, just about half his yardage came off play action. He threw for 334 total in this game. Deshaun Watson has never hit 300 yards as a Brown. Jameis did it in his first start. For all this to happen on the day when the Browns they lose their longtime play-by-play guy Jim Donovan, who retired earlier this year due to his battle with cancer. So obviously an emotional day in Cleveland. And so, just an awesome win for them. And you love the story with Jameis and what he was able to do. But look, the Browns have a lot of talented players. And just to see that team kind of like waste away, like kind of just waiting this whole thing out with Deshaun Watson, it was refreshing just to see like, all right, like, oh yeah, like this is a good coach. This is a good offense. There's some talent here. That was certainly good to see.
Yeah, guys, there were 2 games this weekend that I wish I trusted my gut on because the one was I thought the line in the Jaguars-Packers game was very suspicious. I did not understand why the Packers were only a 3.5-point favorite. I thought they should have been like a 6.5-point favorite, even on the road. And then sure enough, they only won by 3 on a game-winning field goal at the end. So I wish I kind of trusted my gut on that, being like, I think the Jaguars are somehow – and it almost looked like they were going to win that game. The other one was the Browns-Ravens game because I don't remember what the spread ended up at, but it just seemed to be having the makings of sometimes I call it the new coach boost. Like when a team hires a coach, it always seems like the like even Jeff Saturday and the Colts won their first game when they made that move. Now, unless you're the Jets, because they did not pull that off a couple weeks ago against the Bills, but it seemed like things have been so bad with Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston. Like he is what he is at this point. He's not a great quarterback, but the things that you guys just both brought up, like he's got that juice, he's got that respect. Like it seemed like they might get a boost. The thing that just couldn't get me over the hump in this one was that they were playing the Ravens. But I wish I had trusted that because when I looked up and saw that they were going to pull off the win, I wasn't that surprised.
Yeah, I did. Thankfully, I mean, I didn't put any cheddar on it, but I did make that my pick this morning. So I felt good enough on that one. I did fall for the Green Bay. I fell for the Green Bay trap though, even though it was definitely suspicious. I was like, this just feels too easy, and certainly it was too easy on purpose. But my worst guys staying at the quarterback position. I don't know if you saw did you see the quote from Anthony Richardson after the Colts game?
Oh yeah,
no,
because
I didn't.
He basically was like, I'm tired, so take me out of the game.
Yeah, he took himself out of the game in the third quarter, and so the media asked him about it in the post-game presser, and he was like, "Yeah, I was tired. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of running around right there. I just did. So I should have told Shane I just needed a break." That was. I mean, look, I appreciate the honesty, but on a day where you completed 33% of your passes, your one touchdown happened because 2 guys on the defense ran into each other, and you had a receiver wide open, and that's where that was like the large chunk of your yardage. By the way, Maybe just leave that one in the holster. Don't unveil that one. He's again. I went through and watched all of his dropbacks tonight before the show. everything is just way too fast, like way too hurried. He's missing throws with his eyes. He's missing throws with his arm. It's a lot of growing pains right now with Anthony Richardson. But it goes back honestly to what we talked about earlier with young quarterbacks, is like that development is not linear, and it's he's going through the chunks right now. Anthony Richardson.
You guys remember the Lamar Jackson, fiasco when he left the game and was waddling down the tunnel?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You're better off with that narrative around why you left the game than I was just tired.
Agree.
Yeah, that's just not the. You got to come up with something. Someone in that organization's got to help him, or they were upset that he took himself out of the game. So they're like, okay, just own that one. But
10 for 32, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and like you mentioned, a lot of that coming on a broken play and 5 sacks as well.
It wasn't pretty. Watching all those dropbacks was not a fun exercise.
And they only lost by 3 on the road against a good Texans team.
Yeah, true.
So they got to be frustrated right now in Indy with the quarterback play, for sure. I'm curious how they're feeling in New York about the quarterback play with the Jets. Boy, that's just turned into a complete disaster. Guys, I mean, I've talked about this on the show a few times now. Like, I never felt confident this was going to work. Aaron Rodgers failed to get back to a Super Bowl after winning one early in his career, but couldn't get back with a functional organization. So shipping him off to a dysfunctional organization, it just never seemed like it was going to result in, the Super Bowl that the Jets were looking for. I don't know that I would have thought it would have been this bad, though, and reaching a low point, Fran, today. The Jets are now 2-6 as they blew this game against the Patriots. When Drake May left the game, Pats win 25-22.
It's just crazy, Adam, that like this was a team that just a few weeks ago was 1 win over the Bills away from being like a game out of the East, a game out of the division.
Yeah.
And they have now lost 5 straight, all since they fired their coach, demoted the offensive coordinator, traded for the quarterback's best friend, and then paid Hassan Reddick to come out of what was a legendary holdout, like just in terms of like the millions left on the table. I know they made it up for him, and I still don't understand how they got around that, because I thought that the CBA prohibited that. But to me, this is a team that has been on such a downward slope. It was a tinderbox ready to blow, and now that they've lost 5 straight, like it's they talked afterward. Jeff Ulbrich said it's a moment of darkness, and Aaron Rodgers piggybacked off that and said, "I've been in the darkness." It's like just
we know.
I mean, it's comical. It's tough, but look, they've got some talent. It's just about. I mean, it seems like a pipe dream for them to challenge for a wild card at this point, certainly.
Yeah, that is one special type of dumpster fire over there. I was thinking about this because the Broncos have kind of played the Jets a lot over the last few years. And like when they played them this year, I was like, wait, this might be a worse setup than they've had. And then I was like, the Jets need like a young quarterback that they can get excited about, kind of rally around. And I was thinking like the Broncos have this young kid on the roster, Zach Wilson. Maybe they would want to trade for him and bring him in, get some young blood in there.
But even maybe they can go the veteran route. There's a guy out in Minnesota that he found some new life with a new coach. This guy Sam Darnold. They could give him a shot too. Maybe they'll find some luck there.
Exactly.
That's good. Or I don't know, bring Mark Sanchez out of the broadcast booth.
Might do us all a favor by taking him out of the booth though.
Wow.
Shots fired. That was good. Let's see what else we got. We got the Bills took care of business against the Seahawks today. Chiefs, some chalky matchups there. Any other games you guys want to hit on? The Cardinals 28-27. They're 500. The Dolphins getting Tua back today managed to get more offense, but apparently defense couldn't do enough to hold off Arizona.
Yeah, it was a lot of the downfield stuff. Kyler Murray, he gained a total of 15.2 expected points just on the throws of 10-plus yards down the field, the 6th best number in a single game this season. And going back and watching, I mean, I've watched Kyler throughout his career, and a lot of his best plays have been when he's been able to extend and he holds on the ball and he runs around and he makes some of those plays. Some of his best highlights have come on those. In this game, that was not the case. It was a lot of like the really well scripted, a really good anticipation throws. He made some nice throws to Marvin Harrison Jr. on some deep crossers. He had an outstanding one to Harrison on a deep out route where he was getting pummeled. He had a defender coming down in his face. He got rid of the ball so fast and put it in a spot along the sideline. A lot of really tough throws for Kyler in this game. So the people that love Kyler, there's going to be some really good moments to kind of point to here in this one, but unexpected because I kind of thought Miami would be able to come away with this win, but that defense just couldn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, Kyler looked amazing. I mean, he ends up with an 89 QBR in this game. I feel like the key for that offense when I've watched them is Trey McBride. And in this game, 9 catches, 124 yards. It feels like whenever they get him involved and get him cooking, it like gets Kyler to settle in. It opens up things for those receivers. Marvin Harrison made some incredible catches. It's fun that offense is fun to watch when they're going.
Yeah. No question.
No, and it's got the potential, I think, to continue to get better. It's gonna be another. This is where the Bears go next week. Our CHGO crew will all be going out in Arizona and facing this Cardinals team, and similar to, I don't know, it kind of feels similar to where the Commanders' offense was today, going up against the Bears' defense. So we'll see how they kind of bring in this whole show full circle, I guess, with the drama. And I can't imagine the flight home right now from Washington, D.C., how they'll handle Tyreek Stevenson. Interesting test for Matt Eberflus and company as they go back on the road. They've had a weird schedule where they went to London, bye week, road game. It's like they haven't seen Soldier Field in a long time, and eventually it'll be the Patriots in the coat. But this is starting to feel like a must-win game in Arizona next week. See if they can slow down Kyler Murray in this offense, because it does look good. Doesn't
everyone who gets sick of the cold in Chicago, though, move to Arizona? So it might be kind of a home game for them there.
Yeah, well, Johnny Venerable was saying last week on the show that like the tickets for that game are just impossible to get. So yeah, you have it's Chicago West. It is. There's Chicagoans have already invaded Arizona that live there, and then there's gonna be more that go. So it should be fun. We're gonna have an awesome time there. We got events planned. We got a golf outing planned on Saturday.
Awesome.
So if anybody still wants to join us, they can. TrueFanTravel.com. Sign up for the events as we kind of do a CHGO PHNX crossover, especially with that golf outing on Saturday. Going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully the game goes better than – hopefully it's more like London than D.C., because I can't think of two more opposite games for this fan base. Like everything went well, seemed like a Super Bowl overseas, and then to come right back to reality in America with handoffs to offensive linemen and Hail Marys where they don't cover the tip man. Guys, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
For me, I mean, looking at the Sunday night game, Brock Purdy just looks a little bit off. I think he played really well to start the season. He was kind of playing out of his head a little bit in terms of not leaning into the play action and all the things that we've come to expect from a Kyle Shanahan offense. And these last couple of weeks, he's looked a little bit more unsettled. He's missed more throws. I think that certainly happened tonight, especially in the first half of this football game. But look, when you get the ball into George Kittle's hands and you get the ball into Deebo Samuel's hands, both as a runner and as a receiver, good things are going to happen. And so they were able to get those explosives here in this football game. I think the big thing is, Dallas, they don't have a second guy. I mean, CeeDee Lamb finished 13 for 146 and 2 touchdowns. After that, Jalen Tolbert had 3 for 44. Jake Ferguson, the tight end, had 6 for 23. I mean, they just don't have enough, and the running game is non-existent. So they just don't have anything else right now that they can lean on offensively to be able to move the football with consistency. And so, honestly, that was my big takeaway just from watching that game is Dallas is just so one-dimensional. And even in that dimension, it is so finely tuned into CeeDee Lamb, and that's it. It's just a tough way to live.
One of the things I love about us growing and expanding All City is I never used to follow people who cover other teams other than mine, but now I have like all of these people in Dallas and of course Chicago and Philly that I follow, and like all this week I was like, wait a minute, the conversation in Dallas right now is about tours of the facility. Like in the middle of the season, the big conversation is whether or not there should be allowed to do public tours of the facility while there's players in there. When I saw that line come up tonight, I immediately bet against the Cowboys. I was like, there's no way a team that is talking about this all week is going to be able to win a football game. They are in a dark place.
Well, and that's the lesson you do learn when you start to dive into every NFL market. It's everyone's got their drama and craziness, and that's why it is the best and most popular sport that we got going right now. And it's been awesome to do this show on Sunday nights to kind of bring our all-city teams together and break it down from across the country and all the perspectives. And we're going to keep it going. Please hit that like button if you're enjoying it. Please also follow RK and Fran Duffy as well. You can hit RK up at Ryan Konigsberg and Fran at F Duffy NFL. I am at Adam Hoge on Twitter as well. You should be following everybody across the All-City Network, but we have such a all-star group of NFL reporters and analysts. And Fran does great work with the NFL draft that we're really excited to have him on board for too. So yeah, go ahead, RK.
Well, I have two things here, but I'll start with Fran since you just mentioned his NFL draft. Fran, you got to come out to Colorado and see my boys, Shador and Travis.
Especially Travis, man. Travis, dude, he is so much fun. I love and he if I've got just like 20 minutes and I'm like, I don't have to pick my son up yet. Like, what can I do? I'm like, let me just watch Travis Hunter, like his wide receiver snaps from this game. I can get through that fast from last week. He is a blast, man.
Yeah, so come out to Colorado. We'll get you to see him in person.
I'm in. No, they count me in. That'd be awesome.
And then the other thing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Adam, I think I might be coming to Chicago at the end of this week, so I'll see you then. Before you leave for. I
was gonna say, hopefully before we leave for Arizona.
Yeah, when do you leave?
Friday. I think our flights are like Friday afternoon.
I think we'll overlap.
All right, nice. That's good to hear. Who's up next on the Buff schedule?
Got a nice bye week this week, which is exciting. I think every college team gets a double bye this year, so we needed this second one because Shador got a little banged up in last night's game. But after that, it's we're on the road to Texas Tech.
There it is. We were talking about this last night watching a Cincinnati Colorado game. I'm like, who's in what conference? Like, I feel like I follow college football very closely, and I am so confused about I got SMU's playing Duke on one screen. I'm like, what is happening here?
But I love it. Like, I am thoroughly enjoying it's Texas and Georgia, and it's a conference game. Like this is phenomenal. Ohio State and Oregon, a conference game in October and September. It's phenomenal. And we're only going to get more of them. So that to me is very exciting. And the playoff is going to be a blast. I can't wait for them to expand it again because we know that's coming in like 2 years. They're gonna make it even more. It's going to be better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like all the random matchups because it's honestly led to more good matchups.
Yeah.
And it's been overall been really good. I like it, but I still sometimes I'm like, is this a non-conference game or a conference game? I can't like Cal played Oregon State.
Yeah.
In a non-conference game.
Right. And yet they played Florida State in a conference game.
Yeah. Okay. It's fun though, and congrats to the Buffs. I hope they keep it rolling because if people haven't been paying attention, it's been good for all city business too.
That's right. Definitely true.
You guys do a great job over there, and it's we'll keep it rolling with Dion and company. I love when they're playing night games. It's always on my TV until like last night I fell asleep, but. We made it pretty far, guys. Great stuff. Appreciate you being here tonight, and everybody watching, listening. Remember, you can catch this as a podcast too. If you don't always catch it on YouTube on Sunday nights, it's available on your podcast feeds wherever you listen to podcasts. Just look up the All NFL podcast, and we'll keep this going every single week with our stud group of NFL analysts and reporters across the league. For Ryan and Fran, I'm Adam Hoge. Talk to you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.